Hi, I'm Marvin Ferguson. I'm at a Habitat for Humanity house here in Saratoga Springs, New York. I didn't hang the drywall here, I'm just here to tape it, but overall the hanging is very good. And I thought I would take this opportunity to explain the good points of this hanging job. For example, this wall right here is a long wall. The space between these two windows is about 14 feet. They use 16-foot pieces of drywall. The only seam I have is this 14-foot horizontal seam. The only butted seams they have are above and below the windows. These are nice. They're enough away from this edge, so I'm not worried about it cracking, and they're also going to be very easy to hide. In residential construction, particularly habitat-type houses, which don't have a lot of high ceilings, horizontal is the way to hang your drywall. For example, I already mentioned this is about a 14-foot seam. If we had gone vertical with our drywall, we would have had one seam here, 2, 3 8-foot high seams. That would be 24 feet of seam to tape on this wall compared to 14. And this horizontal seam is at a good height for taping, good height for finishing. It's also going to be very easy to conceal, even if there is a little bit of waviness in the wall. If we had put a vertical seam on this stud, for example, which I can see is slightly ridged, that seam would be very difficult to hide. So horizontal is definitely the way to go. This is also a pretty large ceiling. This long run over here is about 26 feet long, and they use 16-foot pieces of drywall. Here's a 10-footer here. They started out with a 16, so there's only one butted seam on this whole edge, and that's good. If you had gone with shorter pieces, let's say 8-footers, you would have had at least 2, probably 3 butted seams to deal with. So getting the longer lengths is a big plus. Going horizontal is a big plus. The other thing I look for when I'm just taping a job that I didn't hang is the fasteners. And I think this is also critical. Only use screws. You're not using nails. And don't over fasten. On walls, you only need 2 in the field. So it'd be 16 inches on center in the field. One little thing I'll point out here along this window opening is these screws are about 2 inches from the edge. I would prefer them to be close to the edge. That way the casing will cover them and I don't have to tape them. But by having them that far apart, I'm going to have to actually put a coated joint compound on them. Ceilings, you go 3. 3 in the field. 1, 2, 3. So they're about 12 inches on center. You might think, well, I'm going to do an extra good job. I'm going to put 5 on this. I'm going to put 8 on the ceiling. That's actually doing more harm than good. You're more likely to get a screw pop with the more fasteners you apply, and they're just a little bit more difficult to hide. So fastening and seam, minimizing the seams is big. Overall, I think this is an excellent hanging job. I'm good. Hey, I want to talk a little bit about how I figure drywall for a house. And I can tell you all about that based on this one room. In residential construction, we go horizontal. On all the walls, they're going to be hung horizontal. On the ceilings, we go perpendicular to the ceiling joists. So whatever the width of the room is, that's the length of drywall I would like to get for the ceiling. And whatever length of the wall is, that's the length I would like to get for that wall. On this wall right here, we have 14-foot pieces of drywall leaning against it. So that is the reason I have these 14-footers here. Because starting from that corner, 14-foot hits right over this doorway here. So the only seam I'm going to have on this wall is about a 13-foot horizontal seam to tape. If I measure the width of these, of the ceiling, it's exactly 12 feet. So on this ceiling, I'm going to order 12-foot pieces of drywall. So the ceiling, I'm going to order 4 12-foot pieces of drywall. The back wall of this room, which is also 12 feet wide, is going to have 2 12. This wall, 2 14-foot pieces. And the opposite wall, also 2 14-foot pieces. Then I just have to figure whatever additional drywall I need for this room around this closet area. The back wall of this closet is 7 feet, so I'm going to order 2 7-foot pieces of drywall for there. The width of the closet is 24 inches, so I'm going to actually rip an 8-footer in half, hang this end wall with half the sheet and the other end wall with the other half. I'm going to, as long as I can maneuver them into this closet, I'm going to stand them up so I don't have any horizontal seam. The end of this face of this closet, this is 9 feet, so I'm going to order one 10-footer for the top and then an 8-footer to finish it up. The only time I'll ever stand drywall on end, vertical, is on end walls like these over here. Like this end wall here is 36 inches wide. I'm just going to rip an 8-foot piece of drywall 36 inches wide and stand it up there so I have no seam to tape. When I figure drywall for a house, I don't tally each room separately. It's not necessary. The people hanging this house, which in this case is going to be me, I know that this room is going to require 14s and 12s and 8s and maybe 1 10 for here. So I don't need a separate tally for that. I know a lot of areas of the country you can't get this variety of drywall. We have 8s, 10s, 12s, and 14s on this job, and if I needed 16s, I could have even ordered some 16s. So a lot of places you may just have to deal with 8s and 12-foot pieces of drywall. In that case, you're going to have a lot more butted seams. So that's something to think about. If I only had 12 footers for this wall, where would be the best spot for that butted seam? I would probably hide it over into this corner. The 12-foot would hit probably on this stud right here. So that would be an easy to hide butted seam. I'm still going to go with long lengths on here because if I went with 8-foot pieces, I would have a butted seam in the middle of this wall, which would be much more difficult to hide. So even if I'm faced with only having 8s and 12s, I'm going to try to use the longer pieces as much as possible. So there you go. Very simple. This is typical room. It happens to be a nice height for me. It's only 7'6". If this house was 9-foot high ceilings, I would not order the 48-inch high drywall. I would order the 54-inch high drywall. So when I go horizontal, I'm still only having to deal with one horizontal seam. Hanging drywall horizontal in a house typically reduces the linear footage of seams that you need to tape by 25%. So don't think to yourself, oh, I'm just going to buy 8-footers. They're much easier to maneuver, easier to work with, maybe even a little cheaper. But you're going to end up with a lot more seams to tape, and they're actually a little more difficult to hide if you hang them all vertical. So, simple.